Hey guys, it's your family here, and today I'm going to be doing something completely different than, anything else that I've ever done before. And I haven't really seen, I don't think I've seen anybody else do it on YouTube either. I'm going to be reading a book. This is going to be a let's read, because, why not? It's going to be of this book right here, Sunset of Furmankind. You can, I'll have links to in the description to the book. I'll have a link to the chapter that I'm reading in the part, and I will have just a general link to his website. He's got lots of other really good books on here. I'm just going to be reading this one because I like this one a lot. We're going to be starting chapter 1, Crime of Passion. You can look at that. I think it's really cool. Anyway, hopefully I'm not too terrible, and let's begin. Chapter 1, Crime of Passion. The first of 2 gunshots failed to attract the attention of a nearby crowd, largely due to the revelry and celebration of the new year. Couples danced, drinkers toasted the night with exuberant enthusiasm, and cheering crowds lifted their voices for the occasion as youngsters set off confetti poppers to coincide with the fireworks bursting overhead. The second shot rang out in a random lull of the festivities, and had a dancer in the throng not jerked upright and then fallen to his face in the midst of the crowd. It might have also gone unnoticed. The lithe, dark-haired angel the man had been dancing with felt her partner's sudden shift of weight a second before his knees buckled. But it was another female reveler who screamed first when a froth of blood sprayed her white party dress. Had the shooter been prudent, he would have departed the vicinity as soon as he was sure the target was down, but instead he rushed into the crowd of shouting men and screaming women to grasp the wrist of the victim's partner. For those short moments, the dark-haired woman stood frozen in her tracks as the sight of her dancing partner at her feet in a growing red puddle. A silent shriek caught deep in her throat. However, the large hand roughly seized her wrist and jerked her away from the carnage. She looked up at the man's wild, tanned face in immediate surprise. Recognition loosened the scream from her lips. Accompanied with shrieks of terror, the woman flailed at her abductor with her free fist, kicking hard at his shins with pointed-toed dancing shoes, and even butted at his square jaw with the top of her head. Combined with the pressing throng of the crowd and the resistance of the captor, the shooter was unable to withdraw as quickly or quietly as intended. Several men from the multitude realized that an abduction was taking place right under their noses and moved quickly to subdue the woman's attacker. In order to grab the woman, the shooter had pocketed the revolver within his coat and had nothing in hand to ward off the men who interfered with his plans. He struck out blindly, but the woman had wrenched from his grasp, and 4 saviors wrestled him to the ground. He received 3 blows to the jaw before he was unceremoniously turned over and pinned to the ground with a weighty knee in the small of his back. Despite the success of his captor, others in the crowd were oblivious to the struggle as the throng simultaneously moved in closer to the victim and pulled back away at the sight of so much blood. Someone knelt down next to the man to check his condition, but another yanked him away before he could touch him. From somewhere nearby, 2 police officers pushed their way through the throng, ordering gawkers to let them through to the victim. One crouched by the man's side, attempting to avoid kneeling in the pool of blood, while his partner pushed the crowd back to give them room and air. The first officer reached out towards the fallen man's neck to feel for a pulse, but when he saw what was before him, he hesitated in an almost unconscious curl to his lip. Steeling himself, the cop buried his fingers in the thick hide of the victim's neck, and although it was difficult to find, he located a weak pulse in the carotid artery. "He's still alive!" the officer shouted above the noise to his partner, pulling his radio from his belt holster to call for an ambulance. "Quiet down!" ordered the second cop to the gathering crowd. It took several commands before the immediate throng silenced enough that conversations were reduced to mumbles. At the announcement that the victim still lived, the dark-haired woman pushed her way past the standing cop and dropped to her knees in the blood to stop while clutching at her lover. "Ma'am, please get back," said the cop, putting his hands on the shoulders and pulling her away. An ambulance is on its way. When she only looked at him with tear-stricken eyes and did not move, the officer sighed. What happened? He asked. Suddenly invigorated with anger, the woman spat out, It was my ex! He shot him! At those words, someone from the crowd said, They've got him over here! The second cop moved quickly towards the voice, and the crowd parted to let him see the wide-shouldered man with short rusty hair pinned down, face down to the ground by several other men. The officer gave the four a nod of acknowledgement and then kneeled beside the prisoner. Without preamble, he reached into the man's back pocket and pulled out his wallet. He read the man's name aloud for identification and said, You are under arrest on the suspicion of attempted murder. The shooter ceased struggling against the captor while the officer read him his rights. Despite the continued revelry of the occasion some distance away, the crowd in the immediate vicinity had fallen silent at the arrival of the medical team that had been stationed in a nearby tent set up in preparation for the downtown New York's crowd. Just as the medic reached out gently to the victim's shoulder, the injured man coughed once into the concrete street beneath him and let out his final breath. The dark-haired woman clung to the cop beside her with agonizing sobs as the medic turned the dead man's body over onto his back. A collective gasp escaped several of the gathered crowd, apparently unaware of the victim's identity. Dressed in strange sandals, loose-fitting blue jeans, plaid flannel shirt, and a light jacket was something that only some of them had heard about. The figure looked human in apparent shape, but feline face, clawed hands, and a long, thick rope of a tail that had been previously hidden by the coat were all covered in thick brown fur. Although genetically engineered anthro-humans were becoming more common sight in society, they were still rare enough that most people who saw them for the first time were either drawn to them or repulsed in disgust or fear. Although humanoid, the victim's face belonged to that of a mountain lion, the painful expression frozen upon his face in death. Despite the blood and apparent revulsion of some of the crowd, the dark-haired woman flung herself upon the Furman lover and wept bitterly. Next chapter. I don't know if I'm going to make these one chapter parts or two chapter parts. I guess I'll see in editing. So I'm going to stop it here. So thanks for listening, I guess. And hopefully it wasn't too bad. I will probably continue on and read the whole book because YOLO. But post a comment down below about what you think about the book. And have you guys read this book? It's a pretty great book. Not a lot of people I know have heard about it. But anyway, thanks for watching and I will see you in the next part.